Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Indie Interactive, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. And I have a super fun show today because we have a few guests. We have, and I don't know how it shows on your screen, but I think it is the same as mine. In the bottom right-hand corner is my community manager for the female indie musician community, Beth Matthew. And we also have couple wonderful ladies who are members of our female musician community. Top right, at least it's the way I see it, is Catherine M. Thompson, and then my bottom left is Sheila Veerkamp. So I'm going to let Beth take it away. I'm going to be jumping into the chat. I'll be also, communicating, but this is going to be a really fun discussion about the state of women in music, and the unique struggles that we have as women in the music business, as well as how we can find ways to deal with them and overcome them with the support of others. So Beth, take it away.
Absolutely, Bree. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you all. And I am so delighted to have Catherine M. Thompson and Sheila Veerkamp with us today with Bree on her Indie Interactive show. Catherine and Sheila are very involved participants in our female indie musician community. And we have right now, I think we have around 3,100 ladies in the community, and it's just a great place to be. So I'm going to ask each of them to tell you, the listeners, a little bit about themselves and their music. So Catherine, why don't we start with you and go ahead and share with the audience here a little bit about maybe just 3 or 5 minutes about yourself and your music.
Sure, Beth. Thank you very much, and thank you, Bree. It's really an honor to be here. I am Catherine M. Thompson, a cappella singer, songwriter, and poet, and I have been writing some poetry all my life and songs since about the mid-'70s. Now, I had a career in dance and arts education, and since 2011, I've devoted myself to my writing. And I now have a great producer, Chris Burkett, and we are working on my third EP. So that's where I'm at. I can give you some more personal information if you like, Beth, or is that enough to go on?
Sure. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, when you started and how you officially started your career in music, and maybe some personal.
Sure, like I said, since 2011, which is when I retired from my education career, I'm 70 years old. Yesterday was my 51st wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
And, 3 children and 3, their partners and 3 grandchildren. And my extended family is huge, and it represents many careers, but many in various arts. So it's comfortable to be working in the arts in my family. I was a dancer, not a musician. I do not play an instrument, but I'm the songwriter. And really what happened in 2011 is that I had known some singer-songwriters in Toronto. I joined a week-long intensive every July called Song Studio. In 2012, started to do some co-writing. In 2013, I met Chris Burkett, who is an internationally award-winning producer, but also a singer-songwriter himself. He really gets me, and he gets what I'm doing when I sing my songs. And so that's kind of been it since then. He's very easy to work with. I do what's called the Catherine M. Thompson Song Project. We did Celtic Cat. I will show you. We did Celtic Cat in 2015 and Cool Cat 2017. And
I love that picture of you.
That was from half a lifetime ago when I was a dancer. And we're working Wildcats in Progress. Swing Daddy from Cool Cat was a finalist in the Canadian Songwriting competition. And I've been asked to come back. I mean, I go to Song Studio every summer, but this year I'm one of 3 alum out of a choice of probably hundreds that has been asked to sing a couple of my songs in the opening alum set for the faculty showcase So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I perform
Yeah.
occasionally. I'm Chris's MC, host, singer, poet, to do my patter between and introductions and so forth. I do open mics. I do poetry mics as well. And what I love about your community is that even though at my age, I work at a very slow pace, I still keep to be encouraged to do things and to get answers to kind of not obstacles, but challenges that I'm up against.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. We're going to get to that a little bit in a little bit.
Sure.
I did want to ask you.
Jump in, Beth. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because I just want to say hi to some people in the chat. I really appreciate you guys showing up live. I want to say hi to Adam. He says 51 years of marriage. That's amazing. It absolutely is. I'm not even on 25 yet, so that's fantastic. Want to say hi to Carlene and Avelia and Jesse and Tara Brisky is here and Molly and Adrienne and maybe some others that I can't see at the moment. Kaz is here. Thank you guys so much for showing up live. We are definitely going to get into a discussion about women in music and the struggles that we face. So I would love to hear while Sheila is going to be introducing herself and then we're going to be having a little conversation. I'd love to have you guys in the chat. Just if anything comes to mind for you that you think is something that's really unique to women in music and something that we deal with and obstacles that we face or something that's happened to you over the years, I'd love to hear that in the chat here while Sheila's introducing herself. So I want to give you guys some action items in the chat. So go for it. And if you love what these ladies are saying, definitely throw some hearts their way. I've seen some coming across here and they really appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, we do appreciate everybody showing up live with us. It just makes the party even more fun. And with it being our finale today, it's really special to have everybody here. And Catherine, I wanted to ask you real quick, just what kind of dancing that you used to do? I used to do tap and jazz, and I love dancing. But I was curious.
I'll be real brief. I mean, my early training was ballet, tap, and jazz. My degree from York University was in modern dance, and I taught and created choreography for years and years. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Well, you're an inspiration to me and Bree, and I'm sure all these ladies. And you don't look 70, by the way, too. And anyway, we're happy. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Catherine. So Sheila, please we're delighted to have you with us too. And you are from Canada as well. Why don't you tell us where in Canada you reside and a little bit about yourself and your music?
So. Okay, happy to be here. Really honored to be invited to speak. I'm living in Montreal. This is home for me. It's been home for a long time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, very clearly.
So I have a very active teaching practice where I teach piano and voice. That's kind of my bread and butter. But a couple of years ago, I decided when my kids moved out, it was time to start. Although I've been writing my whole life, I hadn't done a lot of recording, so I decided to do an album. So I did my first album out of my home. I recorded it, everything out of my home a couple of years ago, well, a year and a half ago. And I think, it's interesting because you can hear that I'm classically influenced, but I think I was thinking about that growing up. I think I was of a generation where we listened to all genres of music. We weren't really stuck in one genre. We really embraced all genres, and it was more about the expression and the delivery and what made music appealing. So I think you might hear various influences within my writing. With my writing, I have a lot of vocal training. I've sung in choirs my whole life, so I tend to do a lot of layering of vocals. I played violin. I went to a music school when I was younger, so I often will write string parts for my arrangements. In high school, I played trumpet for 5 years, so I'm attracted to horns. So this past album was very much of an acoustic project. But I hope to do more recording and more writing where I incorporate other kinds of instrumentation as well. So that's, when I'm not teaching, I'm writing. and learning a lot, as much as I can now that I have sort of a clear head and the freedom to explore as much as I can and learn as much as I can. So it was a huge learning curve for me. I co-produced and did all the arranging and all the writing and everything myself. So there was a lot of different areas to explore, right from pre-production right to, the final mastering. I was sort of involved with every step of the way. So been learning
That's
a lot,
awesome.
hoping to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah, and if any of you guys listen to the Women of Substance podcast, we played several of Sheila's songs, and there's several coming up soon. So she's just got a beautiful style of kind of, like she said, like influenced a little bit by classical, but just a great like piano ballad style that I love. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Sheila, I love your studio or your background there with keyboard and piano, or that's awesome. So thank you ladies for sharing. So what we'd love to know, and our listeners I think would love to know, is why did you join the female indie musician community? And Sheila, why don't we start with you this time and just tell us briefly how or why you joined.
Okay, well, I joined first and foremost. I wanted to figure out a way to get my music heard. I had just recorded this album. I was like, okay, I was looking. And then secondly, I was looking for a global community that would provide support, inspiration, and potentially collaboration outside of my inner circle, which is a small, community here in Montreal. And thirdly, I was looking to navigate how to navigate a rapidly changing male-oriented industry.
Okay.
So I found the community. I sort of researched the community a bit, and I was like, okay, I'm a woman. That works. My age is of no consequence. And thirdly, my genre and style didn't seem to be a barrier to being involved as well. So those were all the main reasons why I was just jumped on board.
That's fantastic. And why don't you go ahead and answer this for us as well? What you've answered what you hope to get out of our community. What have you actually gotten out of the community, and did it end up being different than maybe what you thought it was going to be or what you expected?
Well, it was definitely what I was looking. I've gotten everything that I was looking for and more. I've gotten support, an audience for my music. I've gotten made a lot of personal connections through various people in the forum. I've gotten a lot of inspiration just from the incredible amount of women artists and seeing what they're doing and how they're expressing themselves and writing and creating and releasing music on their own terms, which I thought is really inspiring. And thirdly, one thing I didn't really realize that I would get out of it, which has been massive, is like through Bree's courses. I've taken several of them. I've just learned so much more about music. So the music profit path and time management was huge for me. I also, through Bree, discovered Michelle Lockley's class about music licensing and synchronizing music in film and TV. So I jumped into that course, learned a lot. And in a roundabout way, then I discovered Robin Frederick's books about songwriting. So I've been exploring more about songwriting. I also jumped into the Musician Summit as much as I could while I was working. So I've just gotten so much more than I expected, and imagine I'll just continue to be involved because there's so much that you're all offering.
That is so cool. I really appreciate all of that you said. And one thing I wanted to highlight too is that, like, I know where you're from, right? You're from Montreal. And I think it's really great to kind of, when you come into a group, like, just connect and make yourself known. Because when I find a musician that I come across that's from Montreal, I say, hey, do you know Sheila? Because I like connecting people. So it was really smart of you. You've been very involved from the beginning, and just like answering other people's questions and commenting and things, and just kind of, getting yourself on the map and letting Beth and I know, a little bit about you and where you're from, so we can make connections for you, because that's what I love to do. I mean, there's like 3,100 people in there, right? It's hard to find all the people that might be the right fit for you. But if you make yourselves known to the community managers, then we can help make those connections for you. So that was a really great thing that I think you did as a part of the group.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you have. You contribute a lot, and I agree with Bree. It's just, and when I joined the indie community, I just observed for a little bit first before I got involved, and just it is such a supportive community, and I'm so happy that you've gotten everything that you expected and more. And Bree's courses are phenomenal, so I'm just glad that you're taking advantage of all of that. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I got to jump in with this one because Adam said, thank you for mentioning ages of no consequence. So I think there's people out here that are appreciating that from both of you. It's interesting. Yes. We have several generations here, I think. You know, she said ages no consequence, so I won't mention our ages, but I think we probably run the gamut of like 4 decades here between the 4 of us, which I think is so cool. And you're just getting a ton of love in the chat. Want to say just hi to a few new people. Cindy Weir is here, Tracy, Lori, Carol. So great to have all of you guys here live. Appreciate it. And I am looking at your comments, so we will get into the discussion part for sure.
Absolutely.
We have Catherine answer a few more questions.
Sure. So Catherine, thank you so much, Sheila. So Catherine, yes, tell us why you joined the female indie musician community and what you hope to get out of it and what you've actually gotten out of it and if it was different.
Sure, Beth. Okay, so I joined the female indie musician community because I was looking for fellows, as in everything else. So often the stage is full of men. And at my urging and at their maturing, Song Studio has gradually getting more equity, more women on the faculty. But I also, besides that sort of feminist drive that I have, and coming from a family of 6 sisters, okay, I have 5 sisters, there's 6 of us. Wow. I also just wanted to see what else was out there, because in the local communities that I belong to, Song Studio, the Songwriters Association of Canada Regional Group, there are a lot of women that I interact with, and they do sing a lot of different genres in that. But this was just a wider community that I was looking for, and so I've really appreciated that. Sheila is way ahead of the curve on me as far as the advantage she's taken of this community. I am a senior citizen on a fixed income, and I most of any music money that I have goes towards the production of my CDs. But I did join the summit, and once I had a taste of it, and I have to say, Brie, I'm just astonished at the work that went into it. It is brilliant. But I did pay the fee enough to have access to those videotapes ongoing, and that's great because when I have questions about something, for instance, my unfinished website that I've been nursing along with annual payments, and my designer who's set it up and is waiting for me to give him content to populate it. When I finally do get to do that, I will be able to go back and look through the videos and find good suggestions for those things. And this is what I've so there's that. There's those tips for challenges that I come up against, or just something I haven't thought of. Someone asked the other day about the monitors, the in-ear monitors, and I was working with a voice therapist a year or so ago, and she asked me if I used that, and I was like, no. So now I have a few suggestions going back to that post of what I might look for and how I might get one that will work for me. And I think that would be helpful. So it's just from little things like that to the really big questions. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that because we all work at a different pace, and I certainly work at a much slower pace than I used to. I used to be able to keep 17 balls in the air at once, now one, I'm lucky. That this is just something where I can go in, I can have a look, Now, I must say, there are lots of things about it I haven't taken advantage of. And if you, Sheila was mentioning the Women of Substance, I haven't submitted anything yet. I know I can because of Patreon and so forth. And I just haven't, but I will for sure. It's just going to be timing.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, since you were saying, you're on a fixed income and all that, I mean, we just so appreciate you being a Patreon supporter. And, one reason we wanted to have Sheila and Catherine on here is because they have been supporters of us on Patreon. And that's something we set up to help support the free group, because we do have Beth managing it. And, there's a lot of resources that go into that. And so we totally appreciate you guys supporting us. And one thing we wanted to do before we get into the kind of roundtable discussion is I would love to have Beth just read out the names of all of our supporters on Patreon, because we really appreciate all of you guys.
We sure do. We are really thrilled. And Catherine and Sheila, we especially appreciate y'all supporting us on Patreon. So I want to just share, we have our newest supporter is Sue Behavior. And Sue, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Sue just joined yesterday as a super fan, and Michelle Schaefer is also a super fan. And we want to give a special shout out to Denise Dimon, who might have been our first supporter. She was close to it. Lainey Risto is our supporter. We appreciate her. And then we also appreciate Margaret Evans, Laura Musgrave, Erica Olson, Sheila Veerkamp, Sheila here, Catherine M. Thompson, Joe Folks, Lori Miller, Gracious Me, which is a stage name for one of our members, Robin Montesoro, Mara Murphy Barose, and Carlene Thyssen. And then we also have a few supporters who are not receiving benefits at this point. So especially we appreciate them as well. Let me just say Whitney McHale is receiving some rewards through Patreon. And then we have Sandra Bogert, Aisha Casimir, Aisha, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and Magdalene Blue. So a big, huge shout out to you ladies for just stepping up and believing in us and supporting. It really goes to help all the free training. Bree does a lot of training for free. These podcasts, it takes a lot of time and resources, and myself managing the community and just, the involvement of everything that goes into it. So it goes to Women of Substance, radio podcast, female entrepreneur musician, and thank you ladies for making it possible. So we appreciate it. And if any ladies out there are thinking about contributing, we would encourage you to. So maybe now would be a good time to have Catherine and Sheila tell us why they decided to contribute to Patreon. So Catherine, you want to start?
Well, musicians are the only people that I support, usually musicians and the occasional filmmaker that I will support through a GoFundMe or whatever it is, and a Patreon. And the thing I like about Patreon is that I can make a small contribution each month. So it's not like sending $100 to Jazz FM or something like that. I had taken off all of my Patreon contributions for a while when I was doing Cool Cat, and I thought, well, I'm supporting two things on Patreon now. One is you people, and it's a very small contribution. I think it's like $5 a month or something. And then the other one is a young songwriter that I know that I just love. She's still in her teens, and I give her $1 a month, so it's not very much. But I like the whole idea of Patreon in that it's an ongoing thing, and with enough contributors, it will make the contributions to your community substantial. So it's painless, and I love it. Yeah.
Seriously, imagine if everybody in the group contributed $1, we would have over $3,000 a month. So it's kind of amazing to think of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And, at the $5 level, I was going to tell you, be sure to send in, because you do get a free song submission every month. It sounds like you're going to start taking advantage of that. And so we'd love to have you do
in May, I think it was something to do with mothers. Well, the only mother's song I have was one I wrote for my mother's 100th birthday, and it's never been recorded, and it's a family song. So this month.
Yeah. Absolutely. We look forward to hearing your songs submissions. All right. Well, Sheila, why don't you share with us too why you joined our Patreon campaign and what you like about it?
Well, I like it for the same reasons as Catherine. It's a small ongoing donation. And I'm thinking about the wealth of knowledge and information that I've received through your community. And I don't know why everybody hasn't jumped on board and is contributing, like you said, even $1 a month or $5 a month, whatever they can. I've learned about specifics to help my own, even though I've been teaching for 20 years, I've learned about how to increase my income as a music teacher. I've learned about blockchain, social media, house concerts. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Recording production, festivals, all kinds of things. So a lot of areas in the music business that have become demystified through female indie music community. WOS, I think, is great for just inspiring music. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. I just think it's just a teeny tiny bit of contribution when I see the amount of work that goes into what both Bree and you do, Beth.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. That is so awesome. I want to just mention there's several people that we mentioned in the chat. They may not have been here when we mentioned their names, but if all of you guys in this chat that are Patreon supporting us on Patreon, like Michelle, like Carlene, we did mention all of your names and we appreciate all of you. So thank you so much. Now, you guys know me, like I don't love to promote stuff too much. So that's my quick little promotion for Patreon. I did put it into the chat here. Those of you that are in the academy, you support me and us a ton every month being a member of the academy. So we don't expect you guys to go on the Patreon route unless of course you want to get the great benefits of submitting to Women of Substance. But we really appreciate all of you that are in the free group that are willing to help out and help just pay to keep it a good group, a spam-free group. And, Beth does a lot of work in the group to make sure that it stays a good place. And we have a lot more planned. So that's why we're talking about that now. So I want to get into this idea of women in music and, what maybe you guys have experienced as women in music that you think is unique to women. So again, those of you that are in the chat, I wanted to hear if you had anything specific that you think women face in music that maybe men don't, or that it's hard for men to understand the perspective that we're coming from. So if you want to type that in the chat, and then I'd love to hear if there's any more comments. I know you guys mentioned a little bit, both of you, about that and why you joined the group, but is there anything you'd like to say about women in music and why you think it may be a unique perspective in the business?
Yes, I definitely have a lot to say about that, but I'll try and keep it brief. I think, just thinking about my own experience of making an album, right from walking into the first music shop to rent equipment to right through production, the first people you're dealing with is men, engineers, producers, equipment rentals, sales people, radio people. It's a very male-dominated culture on every single level, right up to conductors, everything. So I find that being involved with the female community is really empowering because it takes that pressure off. We already know we're all women, and we can focus in on our art and what we're creating as a person first and foremost. Even when you think about if pitching yourself to submit songs, it's like the genres of female musician or female singer-songwriter, or if you're a drummer, you're not just a drummer, you're a female drummer. There's a sort of exoticism to it that seems to take away from the actual art in general. So I like initiatives that are female based. I never used to, but as I'm aging, especially, there's less of a place for women of a certain age. It's, in the commercial world. So I'm more attracted to things that are inclusive of women and run by women as well, because there's a different perspective all around. Just quickly, I know that in the UK, there's a Wall of Sounds director's series, and I noticed that Beth Orton recently hosted it, and they actually just made it just for women this one time, just to sort of balance things out, because only 1 in 4 of the applicants were women. So I think there's more and more initiatives and more discussion around this.
Yeah, thank goodness. I think there is more and more nowadays. And I did want to mention, I try to bring these things to you when I find them in the group. And one of those things is soundgirls.org. We have established kind of a partnership with them because we feel like we're serving, similar audiences, and we want to really help just promote women in the industry. And so if you're ever looking for a sound person, or if you are working in the sound world, you definitely want to be involved in soundgirls.org. And I posted in the group that the link to their directory. But that's a really good point about, it feels like sometimes that everybody we encounter in the business is male. And it kind of goes to Catherine Mahler in the chat said that she hates it when she's dealing with a sound person and she asks for something and he doesn't do anything. But then when her husband asks for something, he fixes it.
Good grief.
Ouch.
Where is this?
That is frustrating.
Oh my God.
Okay, Catherine.
Yeah, I'll
with
just
a C.
I'll just keep it brief. It's like I said, it's very much like what Sheila said. I find the songwriting communities in around Hamilton, Toronto are very inclusive, like lots of women involved. What frustrates me is when you see a program for something like the Burlington Sound of Music, and you have to go through the enormous list of musicians that are going to be on those stages to find the women. I'm a couple of years ago, out of the whole, this thing lasts from June 9th to June 17th. And last year, the list included about 3 women. I mean, it was just mind-boggling. Now, these are not all songwriters, of course. They're pop bands and rock and roll bands, and some of them have been around for years. But I find it mind-boggling in this day and age. And that's one of the reasons why I put such pressure on the founders of and organizers of Song Studio when I would go for the week-long intensive, and all of the faculty members, but maybe one, would be male. And a few years ago, they finally got the message, and now it's quite lovely. They're getting great. Like we had Shelley Paikin last year; she was fantastic, and Margie Evans, and a number of people, not only songwriters mentoring the students there, but also people in the industry who are producers, who are A&R people and sync people, and so on. So they're out there. They're just, and I think that as time goes on, like it's happening in film and television, those positions will be filled more with women. But I think communities like this, and anywhere where you can have a platform for women in the meantime, is really, really important to get those voices out there.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I'm glad you spoke up about that with them, because I think it's important that we all do speak up when we see that. And sometimes I do find that either they've tried to find women to fit in there and haven't found them, maybe just because they don't have the right network, or they're just totally ignorant about it. I mean, this has happened to me before, and I'll say, do you notice that your entire panel is men? And they're like, oh. I didn't, or I just didn't think of that, or whatever. I was thinking about being diverse in a different way. So it's important for us to speak up. And I will say that I've seen a lot of articles about women at festivals, and there's a lot of people trying to make change in that area, especially this year. And so I'm hoping that by next year, it won't even be a topic that comes across my Google alert, because it'll just be a thing that women are equally represented at festivals. But, you know, usually change doesn't happen that quickly. So I'm hopeful. But I did want to jump in here with what Carlene said. She said that she's never had issues being a woman in music, but she does notice when she listens to country radio that there are not that many women represented there. And again, I think that's another place that people are speaking up. And I see a lot of things come across the news about women in country music and getting this inequality fixed. And I think there are people that are doing that now, but it's going to be a while, because it has been like, 80 to 90% men when you listen to the radio. Do you guys have any opinions about like the radio and music?
Well, I think radio, you know, we have a social and a cultural and an aesthetic influence, because the majority of men, at least in Canada, the hosts of the shows are men when it comes to things like music anyway. So I think, you know, already we've got, you know, they're asking the wrong questions, or they're focusing in on the wrong things, or, you know, that's why I find WS so refreshing, because it's open wide. We don't have this like, oh, well, you know, you're not, you know, of this age or this. So I think, you know, radio is a big, huge influence because of that, just because of the majority of hosts being men. And I think when I find a you know, what woman who's hosting a radio show that's based on music. I mean, there's other weather and this kind of thing, but based on music, I find it quite refreshing.
Yeah.
And my goal with Women of Substance was not to like separate the women out, but to give us a platform where we can shine so other people can find us. And, you know, I think there's been a misconception sometimes that I was like, oh, well, the women need to be over here because we're not having representation here. No, that we just want to find the best female artists, so we can say, hey, everybody, if you want to find female artists, if you're interested in getting more on your station, then this is where you find them.
That's great.
Yeah.
I did want to say one other thing, and this is sort of jumping off something that Sheila said earlier, which is about the genres and so on, because I started going to songwriting sort of evaluation groups probably about 15 years ago. And I found there were so many kind of, you know, the Nashville rules and the this and that and the other thing. And what I've experienced perhaps because of my age is that I finally got to the point where I said, I don't have to wait until I've written a certain song that fits, you know, in a certain hole, like a peg in a hole, that I could embrace the kind of diversity of the genres that I write in, and simply, you know, say, here are my songs. And so when I'm at 120 Diner on Saturday night and I'm doing a little banter and a little a cappella song in between sets while I'm waiting to introduce the next group, you know, I'll go ahead and sing something that is very lyrical, or I will do a piece that I'm going to be in the next one, which is like almost a rap. It's a very out there spoken word piece / song, and I, you know, it doesn't matter if it fits into the sort of genre of the evening or whatever. And actually I find people are coming, they actually like it. They like the diversity. They like the jumping out of the norm. So I think that's something else that women can contribute to, that they can just say, well, we don't necessarily, you know, fit into the Nashville rules or to some of the things that people have said have to be there to make it a pop song, because we're singing all kinds of other songs as well.
Right, which is why we need more platforms for indies like Women of Substance and other things, because no matter how much we believe that we don't need to be stuck in a genre, it's hard to get that through to like the radio and the record people, because they have, you know, these ideas of what's going to sell, and, you know, you're an investment and all that stuff, and they have to crunch their numbers. And I get all of that. So that's why we need to create more opportunities for indies.
Yeah, I agree as well with Catherine, and I understand that there's that sort of context where they have, well, we need to play 10 songs within this amount of time, so no more than 3.5 minutes is a sweet spot. But I as well am very attracted to stuff that's outside of the mainstream, just because as an artist, I think that that's freeing, that you're not limited to those kind of restraints. So
and I think nowadays we should just embrace things like Spotify, because that and Pandora and things like that, because that is allowing us to go outside of that, all those constraints of radio, whether it's genre or length or any of that. We can find a place that we can fit in those kind of platforms.
I want to jump in here too and just share, Bree has just done an excellent job. Just the Profitable Musicians Summit, I think, was excellent because it showed so many streams of income that women are actually succeeding with right now that are outside the box, like house concerts with Shannon Curtis and just a variety of things. And that was really encouraging to me. And I will say, when I first officially started my music career, I guess in 2014, although I'd done music my whole life, men were the ones who first heard me sing and were very positive and got me going. And so I appreciate the influence of men, but finding the female indie community, female indie musician community, for me was the specifics. Bree provides the specifics and the support. And as community manager, I've worked hard to just, with all these great women, to make this a place where we support each other. And I see a lot of questions come through where, especially young artists, might feel like there are things that happen, with men that are uncomfortable to them. And I don't want to get it on to anything negative, but just that we have a safe space where we can share in the community, we can support one another. That might be women only issues that we might deal with, and really encourage each other. And I see like mentoring happening in our female indie musician community, and we really want it to be like that. We want it to be safe. And I think Sheila and Catherine, you all are mentors, whether you realize it or not, and just for some of the younger artists. And I think we're breaking those molds that we've been told that you have to look a certain way or be a certain age. And as Bree, you mentioned, we have probably four decades here amongst us. People will have to guess who and which decade. I'm just joking, but I love it. And there's some women that I meet with in a small group who are listening probably right now that are in their 60s. And they're older than me, and they're kicking butt with their music, and they're making a positive impact. And I think that's just fantastic. So Bree, I shout out to you for creating these communities, and Catherine and Sheila and all the ladies in our community for doing this. And I want to mention something that I should have done earlier real quick, but we have ladies in our group who have invited friends of theirs. We had one lady one member in the indie community who invited over 100 friends to join. 100? Isn't that amazing? And then Colleen Kitchen, I meant to give a shout out if Colleen is listening. She invited 16 musical friends just this last week. So by you all, and Catherine, you've done it, and Sheila, you've done it, but just sharing the fact that we have this community with other, musician friends. And I think it's a breath of fresh air. And it is needed. And I learn something new every day from so many knowledgeable women. And Bree is just the mastermind behind all this. So thank you, Bree.
Thank you. Well, it's been a long journey for sure for me, starting with Women of Substance in 2007 and what it's grown into now. But I do want to mention too, as we talk about women in music, we do really appreciate those men that do support us.
Absolutely.
Not like Beth said, like the first people that heard her sing were men, and they were supportive and they encouraged her and all that. And there are so many supportive men. So I don't want anyone to think we're men bashers in any way.
Okay.
Adam was hanging out in the chat here. Him and any other men that are hanging out or listening to this podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. And there are so many men out there that are trying to make space for women in the industry. And I think of people like my friend Fett, who has his Empowering Women in Audio, which is coming up soon. If any of you are interested in that in Nashville, you can let me know. But he just really wants to help women feel empowered in the studio. And this kind of goes some of what Tara's comment here about how when she goes to a music store, she gets like, kind of condescended to sometimes by the people that work there, because she goes in, she knows exactly what she wants. She wants this cable or this, instrument or this, sound patch or whatever it is that she wants. And they're like questioning her, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. So why is it that they assume that because we're a woman, we don't know? And a lot of that just goes back to they need to do better training. Just like Starbucks had to take half a day off and train people on how to treat customers well, I think some music stores need to do the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I have to say, like, it took me 5 music stores of renting equipment till I finally found the guy who was really helpful towards, showing me how to use equipment, who ended up becoming my engineer and co-producer on my album. But it did take a lot of tries before anybody took me seriously when I was looking for recording equipment. It was just like, oh, there's stuff over there. Whereas finally I didn't, so definitely there are wonderful men as well. And I was very lucky to meet one who just really took my art seriously and jumped on board to help me co-produce my album.
That's what I was saying from the get-go, is my the men who run Song Studio are fantastic. All the men in the communities that I belong to around here are great. It's all very inclusive, encouraging, and my producer Chris Burkett is just amazing. And but I was, like I said, I was talking more about what's on stage, what's on the radio. You know,
absolutely. There's more work to be done
that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say too, I just love all this discussion. So I wanted to give a shout out to Bernard Porter and Roger Ryan, if they're listening, for believing in me and my music to start with. And locally, I shared this recently. There's a magician, not a musician, but a magician in my area, and he has believed in my music. And just, it only takes, if men are listening to this podcast and this Indie Interactive, a man can really make a huge difference in a female musician's career by supporting in small ways and believing in us. And I have noticed as I've gone out and done more live events and more local events, I feel like as women, sometimes we have to work like 10 times harder and just, to be taken seriously sometimes. And it's not like that all the time, but that's just some of the challenge I think that we face as women. And I do love these communities where we can share that. But again, a shout out to the men who are supportive of female musicians, and know that you are making a huge difference just by taking people seriously and being supportive. And then for women, I think just mentoring and sharing, I think that relationship building is so important. And D. Grant Smith, Bree, who was on, the Profitable Musician Summit, he is such an advocate for women. And I think he's encouraged a lot of women just with his manner of how he encourages and us to, pursue and be, and see Paul Fruman. I mean, there are some great guys out there supporting women in music. So thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you guys know, like I don't do business with people that aren't going to support women. So anybody that I bring you guys is going to be someone that's going to be your champion, whether it's female or male. Obviously when I partner with people, I try to find females in a certain area. When I work with Michelle Lockie and Tara B, like they are fantastic. And I could be working with other people in booking and music licensing, but I choose them because first of all, they're women, and second of all, they're super knowledgeable. So just know that I'm always trying to bring people in that are going to be very supportive of women. So we are reaching, we're almost at the 1 hour mark. So I just want to give everybody a chance to have a few parting words before we shut this roundtable down. And anybody in the chat, if you have any parting words or anything that you want to throw in, go ahead and do that. All right. Anybody want to give their final parting words?
I'll start.
Okay.
Just once again, thank you so much. Very honored to be here. I love the daily, Wins Wednesdays and the goals that we set and so forth. I love that. Facebook, I will contribute more to, will submit to Women of Substance. And congratulations, Bree and Beth, on the success of this community. I think it's fabulous what you're doing. And yeah, just, watch for my music. I also did start a playlist on Spotify from women of from the women, well, the first one, FIMAC.
Yes.
And I have a few on there, but then another woman came along, and I think a whole lot more contributors happened. So I now have 2 playlists on my Spotify that started on that Facebook, group. So
that's great.
So that's great. But thank you for having me. I loved it.
Yes, it was nice to meet you, Catherine, and thanks for having me, Bree and Beth. And I would just, anybody who's listening, I would just really encourage you to jump in and maybe explore the Patreon option, because just the amount of wealth and knowledge that you can gain from this community is incredible. And I look forward to a lot more courses and a lot more information and wealth of sharing that I've experienced. So, and you keep making music. Keep making art.
And I do want to mention Carol. So, Carol Nicodemi, she partners with her husband, Ed, and he is like the biggest supporter of course, her and of women. And whenever they do their ads on Women of Substance, he always says that he's an honorary woman of substance. So I love that.
That's cool. Wow. Well, I wanted to, I just want to thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Sheila, for being participants on here. For our finale. And it's just, it's an honor for me to work with Bree. She is a champion of women, female musicians from around the world. And it's been a joy to be the community manager of the female indie musician community and work with her at Women of Substance. And we love you guys. I really enjoy working with all of you women. And I learn just as much from you as you learn from me and as I learn from Bree. So keep up the good work and keep making great music, and do support us on Patreon. Consider that. We do have great rewards. Check it out. So.
Yeah, and I'll just give some audio links. I've put them in the chat, but if you're listening on the podcast, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/FEMmusician. That's F as in female, E as in entrepreneur, musician. And then if you want to join the group and you're not a member of the female indie musician community, it is free. That is at woscommunity.com, because I started it in relation to Women of Substance and it's expanded into so much more. So woscommunity.com. We'd love to have you. Thank you all for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you, all of you commenting, Cheryl and Jesse and Carlene and Carol and everybody that always contributes so much. This is our season finale for the Indie Interactive. We're going to pretend this is a real TV show, and we're going to do season finale because my kids are getting out of school, and I know a lot of you guys are going on vacations, and so I'm planning on starting this up again in August 20th, I believe. So watch for that, and in the interim, of course, we'll continue to have great interviews on the podcast. And so just watch the group and you'll see, we'll be posting about all those great interviews that we have. Make sure you're on my email list so you get information about some of the great interviews that we have coming up. And we'll be back again with you guys in August. So have a fantastic summer, everybody. Go do something fun and go make some great music over the summer. And thank you for showing up for Indie Interactive.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.